stop me. Please stop me whenever there is something ambiguous, and let's start. Shall we start? Okay. So basically, starting from the first of this year, January, we had a lot of breaches. Some have been disclosed and some have not been. In this session, we'll discuss about the major breaches, such as Chick-fil-A, which has impacted 11 million users, which have had their personal informations exposed, alongside with their four last digits of their credit cards. It also includes MailChimp, which got hit by a social engineering attack targeted to an engineer, which led to the exposure of 133 accounts. Also, PayPal was also a victim during this year. They got all the transaction history of their users alongside with emails, tax IDs, and everything else exposed. Both Chick-fil-A and PayPal suffered from credential stuffing attack. We will discuss what is it this attack in subsequent slides. Also, we have T-Mobile, which got hacked, and in subsequent 37 million users data got exposed. From that data, we find date of birth, billing address, mobile phone, and even internal stuff like T-Mobile contract ID and informations. The major health provider Sharp.com also get hacked due to server misconfiguration, which led to social security numbers got divulged, and in addition to insurance data and health records. I am not gonna take much of your times to discuss all the breaches one by one, but this slide and the subsequent slide will show you the major organizations that were hacked during the last 6 months. Including them, we find Activision, US House of Representatives, even ChatGPT. I want to stop here and say a little bit of ChatGPT. ChatGPT got hacked not by third party. They actually hacked themselves and used the faulty library, which led to the exposure of the credit card information and the email information of their subscribers. So in the list, we find T-Mobile also got hacked again. We find Suzuki, United States Department of Transportation. Combined, these hacks affected 18 million users, and they had major consequences. Globally, companies suffer 4.35 million as a cost of a breach, and most of the organizations who get hacked once, they will get hacked twice. The impact of cybercrime, the financial impact of cybercrime is too high, and it's more than the GDP of an entire country like India, which is around 3 trillion US dollars. So we will ask what's in it for the hackers? Why all of these disruptions? We all know that hacking and cybercrime is a very lucrative business. In the year 2022, they had annual revenue twice as much as the largest US company, which is Walmart. So let's talk a little bit about what is credential stuffing that PayPal suffered from and T-Mobile. So basically, credential stuffing is if you use your password in website A, and that website A get hacked, then there is a high chance that you are using that same password for, let's say, Facebook or Twitter or any other website. So what hackers will do is they will get that data, that password, and try it across multiple websites and see if they are able to log in. This attack has a very low success rate, which is 0.1%, but it's an effective one because most of us just use the couple of standard passwords everywhere. You can ask why we are from where hackers will get my password, or I bet there is not enough passwords laying around that includes mine. So in these screenshots, I logged into few database breaches monitoring websites, and from the statistics, you can see 14 million users. You can see this is the largest database they have, which contain a lot of hacked websites with clear passwords. So they will just try and use those passwords everywhere. We can ask how we can protect from credential stuffing. The basic protection mechanism is having a multi-factor authentication. So if a hacker knows your password, even if a hacker knows your passwords, they won't be able to log in because they don't have the second factor, which is the OTP or whatever method you are using for multi-factor authentication. Also, websites should include reCAPTCHA protection and analyze for IP reputations through the WAFs and network monitors. The next attack that we are going to talk about, which is phishing attacks or whaling. So what's the difference between phishing and whaling? Phishing is targeted to a large mass of people, and whaling is targeted to high-level people such as CEO, CTO, COOs of a company. So basically, how phishing attack or whaling attack occurs, an attacker will write an email with a suspicious link and send it to a victim. The victim will unknowingly think that the email is coming from a legitimate user and clicks on the link and enter its password, and that password will be sent in return to the attacker. So just there is a little misconception here in the image. Also, a legitimate website can be used as a phishing website if it contains some sort of vulnerabilities such as SSRF or XSS. So these are a few examples. Include the examples of phishing attacks, include phishing emails, including the infamous Nigerian prince, which every one of us got one. So how can we protect from these? The first answer is awareness. We need to train our employees and our surroundings on how to spot and, more importantly, report spams. Also, we need to implement solutions that scans our emails for known spams, and we need to also scan our network to block emails from suspicious senders. The last attack that we are going to talk about here is attack vectors, actually, for web applications. So we are not going to talk about everything here. We chose four domains. The first domain is broken user authentication. Basically, what this attack vector means, if I am logged in as a user, or if I am not logged in as a user, and I request an endpoint, an arbitrary endpoint, that endpoint won't properly authorize me or authenticate me before giving me the sensitive data. Or even sometimes the actual implementation of the API authentication and authorization method is faulty. Let me give you an example, such as users using developers setting GW tokens, hash algorithms to none. So you can basically just write whatever you want in the JOT and the API will accept. The other thing is lack of resources and rate limiting. Basically, what this means is we don't have checks on how many resources certain users can create within our platform, or how frequent they can request data from certain APIs. Why this is considered an attack? Because not having bounds for users for creating resources, for example, can saturate our databases or saturates our computing capabilities, which leaves us prone to DDoS attacks, denial of service attacks. Also, without having rate limiting, bad actor can scrape our data or leaves us prone to brute force attacks to enumerate and hack our users. The other two types of vulnerabilities are SQL injections. Injections happen when we do not properly serialize and trust what the user gives us and send it to the database. The other dark side of a SQL injection is, in some certain cases, a user can obtain a reverse shell remote code execution on a database. This is commonly known on Microsoft SQL servers through the XP_CMD shell command. And this SQL injection in particular will dump all the data for all users. And if there is a misconfiguration in the database itself or in the application using a more privileged user to query database, it can affect collocated applications and expose their data. The last attack vector that we are going to talk about here is the server misconfiguration. A server misconfiguration can be exposed ports, weakly set passwords, unrestricted forwards, or any type of misconfiguration that that engineers just forgot about. So let's take the server misconfiguration and talk about this a little bit. So in AWS, AWS services offer something called as metadata servers with this IP address. This is a fixed IP address for the metadata server. When you query metadata server in IMDS v1, the server will send you all the information related to your EC2 account ID, architecture, where it's situated, and if you change the path here to include roles or anything else, you can actually enumerate and get what the roles are that are attached to a certain instance. So basically, if the EC2 instance is vulnerable to an SRF, for example, a malicious request can be sent to that EC2, and the EC2 will happily query the metadata server for its informations. Then it will send them back to the attacker. Those information can include AWS access tokens and secret keys. The attacker will in turn use those secrets and tokens to connect to S3 data and dump all the data that we have. So the reason I brought this up, because this was an actual hack to Capital One, and the script in front of you right now is the actual script that had been used to impact and expose more than 100 million credit cards of the bank clients. So you can see we just with a simple SRF vulnerability, the hacker was able to get access to all the S3 buckets that EC2 has access to. So basically, Capital One, after this attack, lost approximately 14% of its stock value in 2019. So due to this misconfiguration being a common misconfiguration across AWS users, AWS decided to issue the IMDS v2, which will only accept put requests instead of get. So this vulnerability will no longer work starting from 2019. As you can see, the EMDS v2 server that will no longer accept get requests. So let's move. We are on the let's move to another subject, including also misconfiguration. We are in the running workloads in the cloud, and the most known orchestrator is Kubernetes. So let's talk about misconfiguration when it comes to one Kubernetes component. We are not going to cover everything today. So we'll take the kubelets as our example. So a few words about kubelets. Kubelets are a component in Kubernetes that will communicate with the master node and act as an interface or an intermediary between the API server and the container runtime here presented as Docker to create pods. So a kubelet by default has permissive accesses. It can read secrets, create pods, exec into it, into them, or even list all secrets within its permissions. So there was a malware called Heidegger malware, which exploited this fact and exploited exposed servers with misconfigured kubelets. Basically, the vulnerability that they leveraged was the kubelets. In Kubernetes, you have some things called as anonymous access. So you don't need authentication to connect to the Kubernetes server or the Kubernetes kubelets. This is luckily is not a problem with the new bootstrapping tools such as kubeadm and even managed cloud providers such as AWS, EKS, and AKS, which ship properly configured servers. So basically, what happened is an attacker found an open Kubernetes cluster with that vulnerability and connected and run crypto mining pods. So let's talk a little bit how the attackers got initial accesses to the cluster. Basically, after discovering the misconfigured kubelet, they leveraged it to exec into an existing container and obtained the shell. After obtaining the shell, they ran a script to download some required binaries and connect it back to the command and control center via two channels, which are teammates and ERC shells. Okay. For the lateral movement means escalating privileges. Let's say I have privilege A and I need to get to B to privilege to role B, which have more privileges. So in this case, lateral movement can be achieved via three methods. The first method, which they automated, they scanned after having the initial access. They scanned using the tool called mass scan. They scanned all the open ports in the cluster. Then they found the misconfigured kubelets of other nodes and did the same, connected to running containers and installed crypto miners. Also, the Hildegard malware offer two other types of mechanisms. The second one of lateral movement mechanisms. The other one is they obtain service account secrets from the node they control, because as we stated previously, having access to a kubelet means having access to everything on that node. So using that service account, they managed to create pods with crypto miners in them. But there is a precondition here that the service accounts can actually have permission to create crypto miners. The third one, which is querying the EC2 metadata, the same metadata that we spoke about earlier, and they will leverage over-provisioned access for the node or for attach IAM roles. In order to evade detection, the malware employed many techniques, such as LD preloading attack, where they change some predefined functions in libraries, so they can mask their presence and won't be very noisy. Also, for the binaries they download AES encrypted binaries, then they decrypt them and run them in memory, so they evade detection. Also, they disguise by changing their process names to a process name called a common Linux process name called bioset. So even PS and 3 won't be effective against this attack. Also, they bypass DNS configurations of the cluster by directly connecting to Google DNS servers, so they won't be noisy. And in addition, the last step they did is they cleared shell history and deleted artifacts after they being used. By artifacts, meaning binaries that they just downloaded and decrypted, and scripts and everything else. So from this, I want to talk about another common attack, another attack that happens this February that impacted Sarathi Parivahan, which is, for those who don't know, Sarathi Parivahan is an Indian government transportation website where applicants can apply for a learner driver license or a permanent driver license. This attack was discovered by an Indian cybersecurity researcher called Robin Justin. This attack during this attack, the security research had discovered 5 vulnerabilities, which led to exposures of basically every user signed up in that in Sarathi Parivahan. So basically, the first vulnerability that the security researcher discovered, which is broken access controls. After logging into the platform, he discovered that endpoints will no longer request authorization. So basically, once you are logged in, you can query anything or everything. So two of the endpoints of those endpoints stood up. The first endpoint, it will accept an application number, which is the driver license or the learner driver license application number, and it will give you the personal information, including the driver license and the picture of the applicant. The second one will takes as an input date of birth and the phone number of a person, and it will return the application number of that person. So basically, having these vulnerabilities opens the floor for multiple attacks, such as applications enumeration, where I can just, if I have enough compute power, I can just download brute force and download all the applicants' data, or I can target a certain individual after knowing their date of birth and phone number, which is not a hard thing considering the social media power. The second vulnerability was after you log in as a normal user and you start clicking these widgets, you will end up on the upload document drop menu, and you can see there is a view documents. A normal user will just put his own applicant ID and view his informations. But there was a misconfiguration in the website that allowed you to just paste any random application ID, and you will get all the documentation needed, such as age proof and everything else. So by chaining vulnerability 1 and 2, you can just dump the entire life of anybody you can target. The third vulnerability that Robin discovered, which was OTP codes were generated on the front end, and even the seed, the random number was also generated on the front end. Combined with two other vulnerabilities that he discovered, that vulnerability 4, which was a captcha code reuse, where if you solve the CAPTCHA one, you can use that same code for an infinite number of subsequent calls. And also, he later on discovered that there is this default system user in use, which is called sysadmin. So by chaining vulnerability 3, 4, and 4 and 5, 3 which is 3 which is the OTP, 4 and 5 that we talked about previously, plus some scripting knowledge, you can reset any user password. This is the script that Robin used to basically brute force and manage to reset the system admin password and manage to get administrator access on Sarathi Parivahan website. Through that access, Robin was able to search for any applicants. He can bypass any application's workflow, list all government employees of the transportation ministry, and bypass all mandatory fees. Thank you for your attention. Is there any question? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ashraf. Folks, feel free to question, and we'd be more than happy to take up your questions and respond to the best of our knowledge.
Hey, what are the references for the Sarathi Parivahan attack? Even I would be interested to understand.
I will send, just 1 second, I will send it to you guys in the chat.
Cool.
There's this one question by Vaibhav. There's no much info available on Google also about this attack. Where did you get this from, Ashraf?
From Google.
Okay.
Just 1 second. I think I have it in the slides. I'll check and
majority of the attacks go unannounced, right?
yes.
They do not get publicized much.
Yes, and that's the problem because we found out that these companies are saying, hey, you got attacked, but the majority of them, they will just deny it and try to cover it up, and you'll end up seeing your data in hacking forums being traded for $2.
Okay, so are there any ways to verify that my personal information being available on such?
Yeah, there is this site called PwnDB. I send it in the chat.
Okay.
You can just enter your email and it will tell you which hacks or breaches contains or have divulged your personal information.
Right. Okay. So any more questions, feel free to unmute and ask, or even if on chat box, we'll be fine.
So I've sent the link to the Indian transportation website in the chat.
It's a huge number, 185 million. And this happened this year only, right? Feb 2023.
This February, yeah.
Sorry. This was nowhere on news and on social media as well. So
yeah, because it actually was not a hack, so he didn't claim ransom or something. He contacted the Indian authorities and informed them of the vulnerabilities, and they took preventive actions and they fixed it within a month.
Within a month?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are more details in the blog that explains the entire timeline.
Right. Right. Great share. Thanks, Ashraf.
Thank you.
All right. So, wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And we look forward to have this at least once in a month. Please be a regular visitor. And we look forward for delivering more such online meetups. Wonderful presentation, Ashraf. Thank you so much for the efforts and doing more of your R&D and delivering this really, really concise and comprehensive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks all. See you. Take care.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.